I had a question about whether you'd ever done any crossover and looking at the male side of things, because it always falls on the lap of the women a lot of the time, right? We look at this fertility problem as a woman's issue, and it's quite clearly not. There are all kinds of things going on with sperm quality and decrease in sperm counts. Are there, before we come back to the crux of the conversation today, are there specific considerations for the men that are listening to really ensure their vitality, their health in this fertility piece?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that was a big reason we put a sperm quality chapter in that book because it's so frustrating as a woman that all the onus falls on the woman, but 50% of the genetic material is coming from the man,
Right.
and 50% of infertility cases have some male factor component. Up to 30% of those is solely the man. So we definitely need to be focusing on the man. Now, the good news is there's a lot of crossover between what works for female hormones and female fertility and what works for male fertility, because as you alluded to, fertility is simply a reflection of whole body health. So, what are your nutrient stores like? What's your toxin exposure like? How well are you detoxing can be a consideration. What are your activity levels like? And are you recovering well from your activity? How's your sleep? All of these things and more, of course, play a role in both egg and sperm quality. Some of the things that are uh, certainly an overlap would be an emphasis on protein is huge. I mean, we're an under protein consuming country, and I know that sounds incorrect if you're reading news headlines that
Yeah.
say Americans eat plenty of protein. That's because our guidelines for protein are set extremely, extremely, extremely low. So if we truly set the mark for what optimal protein intake is, the majority of people are under consuming protein. So both men and women need to up their protein game. In my opinion, that needs to be more so from animal protein.
Hmm.
And that is actually one of the differences with Real Food for Fertility is there's a whole chapter on the issues of vegetarian and vegan diets going into far more depth than I do in Real Food for Pregnancy, going into like the amino acids, for example, and some of
Mm.
these so-called non-essential amino acids and why they're really vital for egg and sperm quality. Um, so increasing animal protein, get the bad fats out of the diet. So the seed oils, trans fats, reduce those as much as you possibly can. Um, Improve the carbohydrate quality, so less of the processed refined, and what you do consume is coming from whole food, unprocessed sources, so it's not as detrimental on your blood sugar levels. Having antioxidant nutrients can be really helpful for both egg and sperm quality. Some of these are, food components. There are, of course, supplements that can be considered as well that are all helpful, again, for both. Um, and there's, some specific nutrients that would be definitely important to keep an eye on for, again, both egg and sperm quality. Vitamin A, vitamin D, especially vitamin D coming from sun exposure when
Mm.
possible. Certain amino acids like L-carnitine, which you're getting in highest amounts in red meat, can really help with sperm quality. Selenium, zinc, vitamin E, they can kind of act as antioxidant supportive nutrients. And then some of the specifics for sperm quality that would be different from egg quality is to like avoid overheating and tight clothing and things that can reduce sperm quality. So, someone who's wearing tight and synthetic clothing can be an issue, like synthetic male underwear. Riding a bike where the testes are compressed, excessive sauna use. It's actually interesting, even excessive exercise
Mhm.
can tank sperm quality. So you have to this is true for both male and female fertility, by the way. There is a middle ground happy place where like some amount of activity is beneficial, but you go too far with too little recovery and it becomes detrimental.
Mhm.
So those would be things that I'd be considering more so on the male component.
Very cool. Yeah, you might have even stumbled across this because you mentioned the tight clothing and synthetics, but there's the male polyester sling experiment. They put it was a small size, 15 guys, 21 days. They wore a polyester sling, and by the end of it, 100% of the guys in the study were azospermic. They basically were firing blanks essentially. Now they could rehabilitate with proper practices, but the conclusion of that study was a proposition that polyester sling could be safe male contraception, which is kind of
Wow.
wild if you think about it.
Totally
So
wild.
it's wild. It's wild. All right, friends, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Radical Health Radio. We got a fresh new podcast for you every Wednesday. If you enjoyed the show, consider liking, subscribing, reviewing, and rating us on your podcast platform. It helps to spread this message of radical health. We'll see you next week.